Welcome to our YouTube video series on commercial leasing. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal. And in this particular video, we're going to discuss Canadian lease agreements versus American lease agreements. And we're talking about lease agreements for commercial property, namely office buildings, warehousing, manufacturing centers, and the like. And what do we see as the difference between Canadian lease agreements and American lease agreements? It's the sheer volume of paperwork that one finds with a Canadian lease agreement. Because whereas American lease agreements tend to be focused on the core business principles, the key leasing terminology, with some touching on legal aspects of central importance. My American clients, whenever they come over and they lease in Canada, are shocked to find that they are now dealing with commercial lease agreements that oftentimes are 60, 80, 100 pages plus in length. And we're talking about single-spaced, legal paper lease agreements. I remember one time, one of my American clients came along and said, I've done about 50 leases for a property, all larger than what I'm leasing in Canada. And nothing has exceeded 20 pages. And I come here and I receive a lease agreement that's 60 pages in length, plus another 50 pages in schedules. Why is that the case? Well, it's the case because legal agreements in Canada have just gotten excessive. The boilerplate attempts to cover every possibility of legal liability from the position of the landlord, such that they build up, and every year it seems a couple other paragraphs are added, such that more pages are added. And what might have been a 20-page lease agreement 15, 20 years ago has now bulked up to anywhere in the 70-page typical range for a lot of these lease agreements. And the lawyers, especially those coming out of Toronto, are sharing this information with one another. And it just gets out there and it just keeps on building and building and building. Such that you have absolute boilerplate being put in further and further to cover every single possibility. And should somebody find a way to get through and penetrate that, or find another loophole, well, that loophole's closed and it becomes an entirely new paragraph that's entered into. And this means that in all likelihood, with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, we're going to see another surge, because there's going to be more issues that need to be dealt with and more paper that's going to be put in. So you can expect another 5-10 pages to be added on to the lease agreement simply because of that and because of the shutdowns. So you're going to see them justifying their work and creating larger and thicker lease agreements. So that's what you're going to have to expect when you look into a Canadian lease agreement for commercial real estate as a foreigner coming to Canada. It's going to be thick. It's going to be lots of boilerplate, and it's going to be atrocious to read, because oftentimes all the key principles are shoved in all over the place. And unless you have somebody who's knowledgeable in these lease agreements, understanding what they're saying, it's going to be all legal Latin for you to read. But they're pretty standardized, and they're extremely, and I'm talking about extremely, pro-landlord. And these landlords hate to make any alteration to them unless you're a big enough client. And even then, they just love their thick lease agreements their lawyers produce. So that's what you should be expecting when you come from another country and you're looking to lease commercial property in Canada. Thank you.